Is everybody here? Meeting called to order, please. Please join me in a prayer. Dear God, today as the session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be good for our city. We also pray for your special blessings on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please join me in a pledge of allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Counsel Gitchia.
Yes. Here.
Counsel Janess.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercia.
Here.
Counsel Noon.
Here.
Counsel Robinson.
Here.
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Scott.
Here.
Counsel Yem.
Here.
Mayor Chow.
Here.
Counsel Drinkwater. 11 present.
Here.
Tonight's communication by Zoom and in the chamber. Motion to accept by Councillor Gitchia, second by Councillor Janess. On favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it. Motion is carried. Tonight we are here to interview a candidate for the next city manager. And I understand that we'll go from left to right. Each councillor will have the opportunity to ask the candidate questions. If time permits, we will have a follow-up question. I understand, Mr. Clerk, there are some registered speakers here tonight.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
Paul Gaudette.
Yes. Please state your name and your address.
Paul
And I
Gaudette.
just
I
want to
live at,
remind the public that we have 5 minutes for each speech.
Paul Gaudette from the Highlands. I live at 4 Bertram Street. I have a question for Representative Golden. Is he here today?
He is. He's
right.
in
Well,
the waiting room, and the public.
On behalf of the Merrimack Valley Project and our faith and labor partners in the city of Lowell, I would like to thank Representative Golden for his February House vote in favor of the Work and Family Mobility Act, also known as the Driver's License Bill. We are proud that the entire Lowell House delegation voted in favor of this bill in February, and we appreciate that Senator Ed Kennedy has committed to voting for it when it comes before the Senate. The bill has broad public support, and we are grateful that Police Chief Richardson has endorsed the bill, pointing out the public safety aspects of it for the people of Lowell. Immigrant justice organizations like Merrimack Valley Project have always prided ourselves in meeting the needs of the city's immigrant and refugee populations. It means a lot that Lowell's political representatives and law enforcement together are publicly united in favor of passing the bill during this State House session. The question is the new city manager will have the opportunity to join nearly 24 municipal leaders in the Commonwealth who have endorsed this bill, as Councillor Leahy did last year when he was our mayor. My question is, will the new city manager, whoever it is, if it's Mr. Golden, will they commit to adding their name to a public list of municipal leaders who endorse the Work and Family Mobility Act? And secondly, can Merrimack Valley Project count on this endorsement as soon as the new city manager is sworn in. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Jonathan Gear. Jay Mason.
I wonder if that might have been Jonathan Grossman, perhaps?
Oh, that might have been Jonathan Grossman.
Thank you, Jay. Jonathan Grossman, 83 Varnum Ave in Lowell. Volunteer with 350 Mass, the Climate Justice Group. And I would just like to ask the council to consider asking Representative Golden a question, which I think is pertinent to the role he's applying for, which he, as we all know, was very involved in getting a new climate law passed, and that's something that we are very appreciative of. And that law calls for Massachusetts as a whole becoming net zero greenhouse gas emitters by 2050 with a 50% reduction by 2030, which is pretty soon. And the question I think that I would urge the council to consider asking is, what steps does Representative Golden think the city should take to do our part in implementing it, should he become the city manager? Thank you.
Jay Mason.
Thank you. My name is Jay Mason. I reside at 415 Pawtucket Street, number 1. Thank you and the members of this body for this opportunity to speak. I've had the good fortune to work with Mr. Golden personally on several environmental initiatives in the past 5 to 10 years. I appreciate the serious intent you have brought to the table at those discussions. Along the way, the City of Lowell has stood up and passed resolutions addressing gas leaks, municipal development from fossil fuel investments, established the road to 100% renewables, and the Community Choice Aggregation Plan. That plan has made Lowell a state leader for the delivery of clean energy to its residents. To be successful going forward, the city must be dedicated to commitments that take concrete steps to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Sustainability Council is looking at transportation and weatherization efforts, among other initiatives, to move us ahead. As manager, Mr. Golden, will you pledge to work with the Sustainability Council and other environmental stakeholders to get us closer to the goals of 100% clean energy and a more sustainable master plan? Thank you.
Thank you both, Jonathan and Jay.
No more speakers.
No more speakers. Madam Human Resource, Madam Mary Callery, would you please bring in the candidate? It's good to see everyone in the audience. Welcome to the chamber. If I could ask the candidate to come sit at the front table. And Mary, you are welcome to sit at the table there. Yeah, thank you. I think the first task, Mr. Candidate, is to maneuver around the chairs. Yeah. We now will start the interviewing process, and as I stated earlier, well, every councillor will have an opportunity to ask questions. We'll try to limit to 1 or 2 questions in the beginning, so that way allow time for everyone to ask questions, and if time permits, we'll circle back to have any follow-up questions, and we'll start from left to my left to right. We'll start with Councillor John Drinkwater. Actually, let me just have the candidate start with the, if you would like to say something first, Mr. Candidate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to start with an opening statement, if that's okay with everyone. Good afternoon, or almost close to good evening, councilors. My name is Tom Golden, and I appreciate the council giving me the opportunity to interview for the city manager's position. As a lifelong resident of the city, it's truly an honor to be sitting here in front of you to discuss the ideas and the challenges that will move us forward. I grew up on Coben Street in Lowell, Massachusetts, with my mother, my father, and my 3 sisters, Karen, Lee, and Mary Beth. Like my sisters, I attended Lowell Public Schools K through 12, and after that went to UMass Lowell, where I received a bachelor's degree in management, and then later on a master's in business administration. I am very proud to call Lowell my home, and I am excited for what our future will bring. That is why I have applied to become Lowell's next city manager. Living in our city with my wife Joan and our 2 daughters, Abigail and Lillian, our family is so proud to be part of a great and historic city. Our city has so much to offer to everyone. After college, I took my educational background and my entrepreneurial spirit and created a real estate career, which was pretty successful. A few years later, I started a property management company, where I'm currently the treasurer, and I share the responsibilities of operations. In 1995, I decided to run for state representative because of my desire to help my neighborhood and our city. Throughout the 28 years as state representative, I concentrated on our city's challenges in education funding, the challenges before us with economic development, and of course, as most of you know, your constituent services and your constituent concerns. I took those challenges and worked with many different partners, whether it be local, state, or federal. We turned those issues, those problems, those challenges into opportunities for our city to thrive. Education is that opportunity that every single one of us deserves. If planners today were dreaming of developing a new community, you can bet they would create a community where you could go to preschool and then obtain a PhD, all within the same city. In the city of Lowell, we don't have to dream about that, because that is Lowell. Like many Lowellians, I'm living proof that you can go to kindergarten and get an advanced degree all in the same city. As a product of the Lowell Public Schools, UMass Lowell, I know firsthand what a quality and affordable education means. Students who currently attend Lowell Public Schools, the Greater Lowell Tech, any one of our charter schools, or Middlesex Community College, they have that opportunity for success as well. I am proud to have played a role in ensuring that Lowell's educational system has always been on the forefront. I've always supported increases in K through 12 funding for Chapter 70, individual grants and earmarks towards education. Our state and federal partners need to continue to remember that this is extremely important to us, and we need to continue to advocate for that. It's also important that we, as a city, continue to exceed our net school spending to assist our schools where other measures may fall short. The city, our city, and all of our educational partners should share a vision of collaboration, where we openly discuss issues and our success story, And we talk about challenges, the challenges of mental health, poverty and homelessness, COVID-19, just to name a few of those. Our collective knowledge, our strengths, and skills should come together to create a positive outcome for all of our students and even every resident that calls Lowell their home. Education is the bedrock of a successful city, and it's our job to make it happen for every single resident. Lowell has had so much success when it comes to economic growth, but our job, as all of you know, is not done yet. The experience that I have creating partnerships make me well-suited to continue Lowell's growth. I am proud to have fostered partnerships and collaborated with key stakeholders, whether in the public or the private sectors. My experience working with our delegation, our governor's administration, to deliver for our entire city has been one of the highlights of my career. For the past 28 years, we have worked together to deliver MassWorks grants that have transformed our infrastructure for projects like the Hamilton Canal, the Thorndike Exchange, and of course, the new Judicial Center. Recently, I have partnered with UMass Lowell to create an ecosystem for startup companies. And you know, we need to be more welcoming to those startup companies. We want them to start here, stay here, and grow with us. This can happen. Also, I was assisting with the RIST Institute for Sustainable Energy. As many of you know, I was once the chairman of Telecommunications, Utility, and Energy, and we worked very, very hard to make that happen. And I'm proud to say that has happened at the UMass campus. I've also worked with the Manning School of Business to create Mill City Consulting. This is business students giving them an opportunity, seeing a need, going out to local restaurants, and making sure that they can help them adapt and grow. The above are just a bunch of snapshots that many of us that I'm looking around here in this room, we've talked about, we've worked on together. But the collaboration and the partnerships and my communication skills, it will lead to additional success with your help. We're going to get there together. Lowell has a key ingredient. The key ingredient is teamwork. Finally, I'd like to take a moment to discuss a topic that is important to all of us, everyone in our community and the residents, and it's our city services. Lowell's a great place to live, and we all know that. And raise a family. I wouldn't do it anyplace else. As leaders, we must consistently raise the bar to make our city better every single day. Residents should expect it and accept nothing less. People want to know that their streets are plowed, the potholes are filled, the trash is picked up, they have clean parks, and they want to feel safe. These are the pedestrian issues. You know something? They're not always glamorous, but sometimes the small things are the most important. The backbone of providing these vital services are the valuable city employees, many who live right here in the city of Lowell. They're our friends and they're our neighbors. These are the individuals that keep this city running, whether it's getting our city back up and running after a snowstorm, and they always seem to come in the middle of the night, in my opinion, or it's fixing a water main break at 2 in the morning. They get the job done. We must give them the support and all the tools that they need to continue to raise the bar for our citizens. Talking about city services would not be complete without talking about our public safety. The men and women of our first responders, they're on the front line. They deserve our respect. They're the ones that put our safety before their own well-being. They do what they do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, in order to make us feel safe in our homes and our neighborhoods. Most residents, hopefully, will never have to use their services, but our police and our fire. But if they do need those services, they can count on these brave individuals being there without question or without hesitation. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for the opportunity to be here today, and I'd like to open it up for any questions or any thoughts that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll start with the questions and comments with Councillor Drinkwater. Councillor Drinkwater.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Representative, for making yourself a candidate for this position, and for your opening statement. I know you wouldn't be sitting here if you didn't have a strong commitment to the city and a willingness and ability to move the city forward. So thank you for that. And I want to jump right in with an issue, and by virtue of the alphabetical order, I get the privilege of going first, which I can appreciate. And with that, I want to ask something that I really evaluate to probably be the top priority for this council and for the next city manager going forward, and that is the construction of the new Lowell High School. It's a timely issue in that this council just last night, as you know, authorized an additional $38 million on the loan order so that we can help ensure that the project is delivered and implemented as designed. So I want to ask you, Representative, if as city manager, if you are committed as well to making sure that the new Lowell High School project is delivered as designed. And also, if I can add a second part, you know, essentially immediately on taking the office, the next city manager will be in the weekly meetings with the owner's project manager, with the general contractor. And just wondering if you can speak a little bit to how you'll potentially balance your responsibilities under Plan E government with this city council's desire for information and sometimes participation in decision-making on the project as it moves forward.
Thank you very much, Councilor, for that. Lowell High project is probably one of the most important projects, if it's not the most important project that we have going on right now. It probably will be today and tomorrow into years to come. I'm absolutely 100% committed to make sure that that happens. It's very important that the students in our city get that first-class education that they're getting right now, but in a first-class building. You have my commitment 100% to make sure that that happens. And I think the important piece with this is the team. And you might hear something similar throughout tonight's discussion, and it's about teamwork. And I'm looking at team members right here that you will know every step of what's going on. I am committed to meeting with Skanska, Perkins, Suffolk, finding out what's going on, digging in. I have been doing a little bit previously, not just from listening, you know, to what's going on here, but I have been reaching out to MSBA, what's been happening. We do have an issue. There is a problem. There is an overage. That's something that myself and the delegation are trying to work on, but I do not want to bring any, it's going to be tough. It's going to be very, very tough, but I can tell you that the delegation is up to this task to do this. But as far as communication, I believe that that's a skill set that I bring to this council that you'll be very happy with at the end of the day. I would expect to keep each council member up to speed with their, however they would like to do it. If they would like emails, if they would like to get together, if they would like to have an executive session, or simply hear a session here in the council chambers. But communication, council, will not be an issue, and I'm 100% committed to it.
Thank you, and I just want to thank you for your strong statement of commitment to moving the project forward.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councilor.
Mayor.
Councilor Kishio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Welcome, Mr. Golden, and thank you for applying. I think that good candidates from our city should apply for a position like this, and I thank you for doing that. In your opening statements, you talked about net school spending, the homeless, development of the city, city services, and teamwork. In order to do that, managers need to have qualities about themselves. So could you tell us 2 management qualities that you excel at and make you a good fit for this position?
Thank you very much, Councilor. I appreciate that. I'm writing down the notes just to make sure I don't give you 3 or just 1. First one, when I was talking to Councilor Drinkwater, I think my communication skills, I think it's extremely important that people know what we're trying to accomplish. What we're trying to accomplish, it needs to be clear, it needs to be concise, And in most cases, it needs to be very direct. When issues arrive, because they always do, you have to deal through it and you have to get it done. But communication is probably one of, I believe, one of my greatest skills. Of course, being in the leadership in the House, that happens all the time. If you could imagine there's 160 people in a building and you're trying to move legislation. If we don't have, and believe you me, we have had mistakes where the communication wasn't clear and it wasn't concise. That has been a problem. We've dealt with it as a leadership team, but I think that's one of my strengths. The second piece I would say would be teamwork. It's getting people to work together. How are we going to get them to work together? We have to continue people moving to make sure everyone is results-orientated, make sure that everybody stays motivated. And once again, that gets back to communicating what exactly it is we're trying to do. People are not going to buy in if they don't understand it and if they haven't had some type of input on it. Once again, relying on the experience that I had within committee work, I had a group of researchers, and at times when we're really tearing through a bill, you have to make sure we are communicating directly and they have to work together. If those folks weren't working together, then the product that we'd put out on the House floor wouldn't get the appropriate 160 votes. I was always very clear on that. I was always trying to win every single vote with not just a simple majority, 81 votes. We were very fortunate because of the teamwork of the folks that worked with me. And I say they worked with me because we all did this together. We were able to put out a product that people were proud of and that people throughout the Commonwealth appreciated. So I think that the two would definitely be communication and teamwork.
There are very few Renaissance men or women in this world. In my experience in local government is that few of us, myself included, do everything well. What aspects of your skill set and work experience will you need to work on to develop further in this new role if appointed to it?
Well, it's fast-paced. The environment here is just like down in Boston. Everything is very, very fast-paced. Things will quickly escalate and change, but I have a great ability to multitask. But what do I need to develop further? I would probably say my time management skills. That would be something, the issue that I would have typically is that I try to listen to folks. I was always put into situations coming back, and I'm once again referring back to the legislature, coming back off the House floor, many times there were people out in front of my office advocating, talking, sometimes shouting about issues or things, and I see Councilor Drinkwater laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. But, and I would stop and talk to the folks to try to find out exactly what they were looking to do. What was the issue? What was the problem? And that would sometimes throw my schedule off, and most likely it did throw my schedule off. And that is something I've worked on. I've gotten a lot better with it. I've just simply tried to tell folks that we have to set something up afterwards. But it was really my pushback not to try. I wanted everyone to be heard. I wanted to listen to what they were saying. And I would say that would probably be one of my things that I need to continue to work on.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Golden.
Thank you. Councilor Janess?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Representative Golden, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you for your interest in this position, and thank you for your tireless dedication to our city. I think we can all agree that you have done many great things for this city, and I hope you'll continue to do them. I wanted to ask about the changes that you've seen in your time in the legislature, both in the city and the state as a whole. Particularly, one big change I'm thinking about in the city is the recent change to the district-based representation that has put a lot of us in these seats here today. One of the reasons we made that change was as an effort to bring in new voices and new ideas that hadn't previously been represented in this room. One of the first challenges that you would have if you were appointed to be the next city manager is the building of your team. It's an opportunity and it's also a challenge, both within the walls of the city manager's office, as well as two fairly high-profile appointments that need to be made soon. I speak of the police chief and the DPW commissioner. So my question for you is, how is this change in how we build our city government going to be reflected in how we build our city staff?
The first and foremost thing is we need to talk about the qualifications for each individual job. Who has the qualifications? Can they work in this? What I'd like to try to create is this team environment. Can that indeed happen? We will need to figure this out day in and day out as to what's happening. I'm thinking about the police department. I'm thinking about DPW as you were talking about that. People that take these positions, it just can't be someone we hope is going to do a good job. They need to do a good job. We've had some issues. We've had some problems. We've talked about it. People have talked about it. It's been pretty much well spoken of. But I think that I'm going to be tasked with drilling down to make sure that the next 2 folks, 3 folks, are up to the task. Are they up to the task to make sure they can hit the ground running, make sure that they have the appropriate qualifications to build a team themselves? These folks are going to be working in another section of the city, obviously under guidance by this body as well as myself, but I want to make sure that those folks are also people that build team and encourage discussion amongst the workforce itself. Because once again, as I was talking to the Councilor Getchier, we have to build that sense of belonging, that sense of caring, that sense of my opinion matters. So I think that's what I'd probably looking to do.
I appreciate that. Just as a quick follow-up on that, the city has obviously gone through recently with the CLA audit we've done to make efforts to improve our hiring practices, our recruitment, and everything else in those veins. What specific steps do you think are the most important coming out of that audit to apply as we move forward into this new era?
Well, first, the workload. Reading that report was eye-opening. I thought it was very well done, and I specifically like that the council has done the hard work so far. You were challenged and tasked with hiring an officer. That has happened. So I think it'd be incumbent upon me, obviously, that person who I've not met yet, I apologize, but they work directly out of the manager's office. Myself, that person from the officer, as well as HR, getting together, once again, ensuring that we are following the roadmap that was put out by Clifton Larson. I think the roadmap was very clear, and I want to say off the top of my head it was 19 pieces that they wanted us to really attack. And I think when you start to discuss issues like educating people, bringing people in, trying to talk about furthering people's careers, that's all very, very simple to me. Why is it simple? Because it's something in the state we started doing as well. I mean, you're looking at somebody that I have to go to these different trainings, and I think that it's vitally important that we start with management, and then we spread it out throughout all of our employees, all of the workforce, to make sure they're getting all of the training that's available. We could probably start ticking off some of the important training pieces, but I would definitely be working with the DEI officer and HR to find implementation, coming back here to the City Council and looking to say, this is an idea, what are your ideas? What else should we be doing? Because what needs to happen here in the City of Lowell, which I think it does in most part, actually, I think the Clifton Larson report had stated that most people that took it, they felt good. They felt good about what their supervisors were doing. I believe it was 85% was the number. But where it lacked a little bit is the opportunity to grow. So I think that's what we're going to have to really dig down onto. But take the CLA report, use it as that roadmap, check them off as we do it, and work as once again, you're going to hear it again, work as a team to get it done.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good question. Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Golden. Appreciate it. And I like the questions so far. I like the answers. And I specifically like that you're a man of action. You really put a lot of thought into this, and you're going to be, ready to roll your sleeves up and get right into the work. So My question would be, maybe you could just give us a brief summary of what you think your first 100 days might be like, you know, if you were selected to be the next manager.
First 100 days. Thank you, Counselor.
Well, you can do 50 days, whatever.
No. I think the first thing, Counselor, thank you very much. Coming in, making sure the key works to the office, if that were to work. But the department heads, sit down, talk to the department heads, really pull back what is needed, what is going on. I would like to ask the department heads to give me their next 30 days of what is the issues, what are the problems, what is something that I really need to focus in on. At that same time, meeting the department heads is probably going around and meeting the employees. I want people to know that sitting over here in the manager's office, sure, it's great for meetings, it's great for discussions, it's great for things to happen, but I want to be on the road talking to employees, talking to department heads, and I wouldn't want anyone to think any differently if by chance I happen to pull up and say hello, what's going on, because I really want to know what is going on in the city. I'd be looking for those reports. I would like to try to say on a daily basis from the department heads as to what is going on, especially when you're talking about outside in the city that I may not be able to see at that time. But we also would, I know that because I've been listening to all of you about the salary review, that's something. We talked about the LHS project, rolling up my sleeves and actually getting really involved in that and making sure that you folks are completely in the know about everything that's going on. LaLasha Ballpark, what's happening? We're just months away from things happening up at UMass Lowell. What are we doing? What about the development going on in East Campus? What does the future hold for LaLasha Ballpark? That is something that we all need to talk about. I would also say that I would like to try to set up a meeting or set up a discussion with our top 10 employers, our top 10 employers, to find out what they're thinking about the city, what can the city do better, what should the city be doing to help them, because that would get something back into economic development. We're going to look for their Rolodex to start talking to people, calling people. We have, as I stated, Hamilton Canal District, downtown, East Campus, everything that seems to be going on. We need to start that discussion and start that talk. I'd like to review the ARPA funding. Talk to the council. What is happening with ARPA? What should we be doing? This is one-time funding that is available right now. I have a small business, Councilor, I know you do too. It's sometimes when you come into money, you really want to look at things that you've put off, things that you can't afford at this time. Those capital projects, those one-offs. I don't think any of the ARPA money, not that I know everything, I'm sure you folks know more about it, but I would want to make sure that with ARPA, we're really digging down and looking at this to ensure...
Mr. Candidate, if I could interrupt you for a moment.
Is it not
Could you
working?
pull the microphone closer to you so I could capture your voice?
Oh,
Yes, be closer, thank you.
that's the first time anyone said they can't hear me. Wow. All right, so when I blast you folks out in a few minutes, I apologize. That's not not my problem. But I'd also want to talk about the homelessness. I want to talk about downtown Lowell. What is needed in downtown Lowell? What do people want in downtown Lowell? The homelessness is an issue. I've done an awful lot of work with mental health and substance abuse, and actually, as I look around right now, some of you have helped me do it. So there's a lot going on. The city infrastructure, the bridges. I don't really want to bring up a sore spot, but Central Street needs to get done. A lot of the Tiger Bridge, we're working our tails off to get it done. I know it's about the steel, but this is something that needs to happen to come into what I would refer to as the gateway, our business area. It's our neighborhood as well, which we could get into about the downtown. Is it business or is it our neighborhood? So I believe that there's a lot of things that we would be doing in the first 100 days that may go a little bit more than the first 100 days, Councilor.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And just one quick follow-up for some of our friends that are here tonight. You'd be willing to be the first manager for either an electric car or a bicycle, so we'll have that.
Yes,
on the
Councilor,
table.
I would do. I would do that. I did at one time. I talked to some of our friends about electric vehicles. As the former chairman of TUE, I did have that mileage issue, that mileage problem, and I know that we talked about it with my friends from 350 Mass. We would go back and forth. I always appreciated. I used to call it push and pull. We used to go back and forth, and Sometimes I didn't go as far as they would like, but I would consider that. Yes, I would, considering I'd only be within the city limits.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Musia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Representative Golden, for your willingness to serve and lead our city. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here. I want to also thank you for your opening statement, your State of the City address, because that's what it seemed like to me. And when you were through, it's like I didn't have any more questions because you kind of answered it all through your State of the City address. But I'm going to ask you something that I've asked every candidate that has become the manager in the city of Lowell. I know that in the past we had John Cox, Kevin Murphy, and even Eileen Donahue, present city manager, that were attorneys. And I feel that this job, this duty to the city is time-consuming, and it takes everything that you have. And I know that you're into real estate, so my question is, would you be willing to devote your time to the city and kind of bypass the real estate? Because my motto is you can't serve two masters. In this position, very time-consuming. How can you answer that to me?
Thank you very much, Councilor. I appreciate that. Lowell will have 100% of my attention. I fully intend, I've talked to my boss as of recently from RE/MAX, and I had told him that I would be stepping down. And I've also talked to the Speaker of the House and told him if offered this position in a timely manner, that I would step down from the House of Representatives. I will commit to you 100% that Lowell will have all of my energy, all of my desire, and all the love that everybody here has to make sure that this city is better and better every single day.
I was going to ask you what your first order of business would be, but Councilor Leahy asked you what your first 100 days would be, so you kind of answered that.
Thank you.
What are you most proudest of when you were you are a state legislator? What is your most proudest accomplishment?
You know,
and I'm sure there's many, but what?
We could talk about all the wonderful things we've done, and I could go back through, because I did this exercise about what have we done, and I always say we did as the delegation, because you do it once again with a team approach. I worked with some wonderful, wonderful people, and I really think from the state side we did an awful lot, trying to help each and every one of the councilors that are here, the residents throughout the city of Lowell. But I would probably say my work with mental health and substance abuse. I would probably say that was the most fulfilling. And I hate to take away from anything else, because we've done a lot of good things. I mean, you can go all the way back to Route 3, and I'm not going to bore everybody with the list because I actually did put it together, and people started saying, no one even knows what that means anymore. You know, Julian Steel, the neighborhoods, parks, we did all these great, great things to try to help our city. But I think, I really think, to me, the mental health and substance abuse work that I did by opening up, reopening a detox center that we had closed years ago, and really trying to give an ear to those men and women that are challenged.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Councilor Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Rep. Golden, for applying and for your 28 years of service to the city of Lowell. Before you took the seat, a few speakers spoke, Jonathan, Paul, and Jay, earlier, and they compliment your work, and they compliment you passing, Jonathan compliment you passing the climate law, the net zero greenhouse, and Paul talking about you compliment you as a state representative, work on Work and Families Mobility Act, and he want to know, will you implement those same law, those same act, as a city manager? Jay want to see you and your team up with Sustainability Council. so that we can meet the zero clean energy. So those are the three individuals who spoke, and I'm sure quite a bit of them will concur with what they said. City of Lowell, not just City of Lowell, every country, particularly we speak of the United States, COVID-19 really highlight a number of inequity that exists in not just in Lowell, in other city and town and in the country. And you may say that it's a challenge. I want to see if you can list a couple of those and expound on it, what you would do. Maybe one of them, I would say, around the issues of inequities in broadband, the internet service for our children during the remote learning. So what step, if you can narrow down on that, what step would you take to address that for our city and our resident? Also, I think you mentioned also, that's one, you also mentioned your idea about the economic development and the housing in downtown. For years, the cities have struggled to help to sustain the businesses in downtown. So can you expound on, as far as housing in downtown, what your plan on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor. The Family Mobility Act would be a yes. I know that was one of the first thing. I started writing stuff down here. And as far as digital divide, Councilor, I was, well, technically I'm still the chair of the Digital Divide Committee in Boston. We are trying to do an awful lot with that. We've been meeting with folks and folks that, with COVID-19, the digital divide it really exploded. It really showed that not all of our students had the appropriate broadband, had the appropriate internet service at their house. That was a real problem. We've been exploring that. I do have a paper actually heading to the Speaker of the House. I can talk about some of it. Hopefully they're not watching. But, and it really discusses how we need to develop a better plan to make sure that if this rears its head or anything like it does it again, we need to make sure that children in inner cities, and quite frankly, sometimes it just wasn't in inner cities, my research with the commission found. It was in other cities, other towns typically, that are in the western part of the state that have those challenges with having broadband. So with the digital divide, it is very real. It came to the forefront immediately. But I had the opportunity to meet with this young gentleman, Marvin, from Tech Goes Home, and they have ideas about how to educate and how to further educate children within our community. And they're in Boston, but it's just folks that I had met. That's something I would definitely think of bringing here, trying to work with maybe Project Learn. The delegation was very successful in helping Project Learn to do some after-school programming. But what it really comes down to is the being comfortable with a computer. I know I'm with a broad stroke here, most children are, most young adults are very, very comfortable. But it's not going to work if they can't connect. So the Mass Broadband Institute is an organization that is a quasi out of Massachusetts. I've been talking to them for the past 6 to 8 months to see if it's something that we could bring in some additional Wi-Fi spots. The cost right now, they're telling me it's negligible, but we haven't got to the brass tacks on what the final cost is on this. But with MBI, with the Mass Broadband Institute, that is something that I would like to, and I'll pick the Lowell Housing Authority just as an example, areas where broadband might be a challenge. If broadband is a challenge in certain areas of the city, I'd like to ask MBI to come in and do that study for us, where if this were to happen, that we would have the ability, the students, the young students, every student should have that opportunity to make sure that they have the ability to do their work at home. And as we all know, it probably works well with one computer, but when you have 3 kids and they're all trying to download and upload at the same time, it gets very, very frustrating. The last piece, I think you were talking about affordable housing. On the affordable housing side, as a licensed real estate agent, and I know that Sustainable Lowell right now, we're going through a revamp. I did read it, and I'm excited to read the next portions of Sustainable Lowell. But we have a problem. It's not just here in the city of Lowell. It's throughout the country. And with the record low interest rates, the scarcity, prices are just out of control. Prices are out of control for houses. I had looked at a report earlier this week, and it was approximately $500,000 or $500,000+ for a single-family home right here in the city. And that's from a population, if you want to think about the population of just Lowell, it's gone up from 2010 to 2020. I want to tell you that it went up about 10,000 people. I think we're at about 115,000 people now. Our median household income went up to about $62,000. In real estate terms, you could probably, if you're at $62,000, give or take, you can afford anywhere between $180,000 to a $200,000 home. There's a big disconnect there. There's a big challenge. Some of the homes right now that are throughout the city, that median income is a heck of a lot higher. So we're going to have to continue to work on things like acre crossing. I think acre crossing is a great opportunity for us to look at, find out how do we replicate acre crossing. Do we do it in the downtown area? Because there are some market rates housing down there. Canal 1, 2, and 3, I believe, are all market rate. But it's an ability to expand upon acre crossing. And if I could, I would say acre crossing was an expansion on, I want to say Merrimack Crossing out off of Gorham Street, the old Julian Steel project. So I believe there's been some real success stories when it comes to affordable housing, and we need to replicate it. We need to continue that. But we also have a problem with affordable rents. Somebody that is in the business, somebody that has done this for some time, it is astronomical. People ask all the time why I don't have any rentals, to be quite frank with you. It's because I'm probably I'm very low, because once people stay, they seem to like it. It's easier for me if they take care of the place. So we have a major problem with affordability, but it's not just Lowell. But I do believe that things like acre crossing and things like the former Julian Steel, which I was a part of many years ago, I think that we need to get those folks in here to try to see how we replicate that, because we want to make sure that Lowell is an affordable place for people to live on top of all the other things, all the wonderful things we have. I hope that answered your questions. We were all over the place for a second there, Councilor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Rep. Golden. I have a couple quick questions I'd like to ask. First one, can the City of Lowell continue to provide all the current constituent services without an increase in property taxes? If yes, how can it be accomplished? And if no, where do you foresee necessary budget cuts in order to maintain current services?
Thank you, Councilor. That is going to be a challenge. There is no question about that. Nobody wants to talk about the word tax. In the legislature, we changed the taxation committee to the revenue committee, so nobody likes the word. But I'm going to come in, if lucky enough, if you folks decide that, I'm going to come in and re-examine everything there, looking at every possible solution. I believe everything should be on the table. I do want to say, I have watched Mr. Baldwin, and I'm extremely impressed with everything that he's done. But I think we really need to get a handle on what is happening within the city. The budget is very similar to the state budget. I did serve on Ways and Means, and I was a vice chair for bonding for some time as well. I think there are ways to try to mitigate this, but we have to understand that our fixed costs are continuing to go up. Everybody here knows the pain at the pump that's going on right now. That happens right here for the city. It just, every vehicle that you see that's out in front of us, we are experiencing the same situation. I also want to discuss about some of the deferred maintenance. We have deferred maintenance. In my opening remarks, I was talking about, raising services up, making sure that the residents, they demand more because they should get more, and we should get the best of the best. And that leads me into what I might have just talked about earlier, is salaries. We have 87 positions open, right, I think it was 82, sorry, 82 positions that are open right now. Can we do it? We're going to have to try to mitigate it. I can't see it happening, to be honest with you, Counselor, but we're going to have to try to mitigate it. The cost of doing business in my small business goes up every single year. My partner and I sit, we talk about it. Where did we spend this? How did we do that? And we're seeing that increase. Cost-cutting examples, if we could, I think we, instead of just cost-cutting, because I don't see that as an option right now. I don't see where the largesse or the fat is in our city budget. I think what we need to do is try to improve the revenue. How do you improve the revenue? You had an idea, Counselor, in regards to solar over at the Robinson School. That's an idea. Can we indeed do that? I believe we worked with Amorisco years ago that came in and talked about weatherization and tightening all of our buildings. If we cut our costs, we have ability to spend revenue someplace else. So to answer your question directly, I don't know how we could do that. I think it's going to be a major, major challenge, but with economic development, with trying to increase our revenue side of the ledger, if you would, we have ability, and I know every councilor here has heard about East Campus. Downtown Lowell needs to happen. Hamilton Canal is happening. So we do have different revenue pots coming in. I think that's important, or additional revenue, I should say. It's going to be a tight road. It's going to be an extremely tight road.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the honesty. Another quick question. How will your management style complement the city's efforts thus far to diversify our workforce, become more inclusive, and provide an equitable work environment?
Well, I think once again, we're going to absolutely go back to the playbook. In any type of sports, we always look towards the plays. What is going to happen? The council has already set the stage for this with the Clifton Larson Allen report. And I think page by page with the DEI officer, with HR, ensuring that everybody has that opportunity, and really going back to check marks. Is this accomplished? Has it happened? Check it off the list. Is it working? That's something we're going to check on later. I don't envision just checking off, and I'm using 19 as the example. I don't envision just checking off these 19 pieces and saying, we did it, we're all done. The inclusion piece, everybody wants to feel included, no matter where you are or what you're doing. If you're on a sports team, if you go to a new job, everybody needs to feel it. I don't believe it's a culture change. I really just don't. I mean, I know a lot of employees here, but we need to start to walk the walk. We need to, CLA showed us the way, showed us the path. And I really, truly believe that this will be something we'll be utilizing into the coming years. But we're not going to throw it on a shelf and let it go. I mean, some things that we talked about was a talent pipeline, how to create talent pipelines. How could we possibly, inside the city, create opportunities for people where maybe they want to get into management, maybe they want to try something different. And I think that is going to be the charge of myself, if I'm lucky enough to be appointed, to talk to the department heads to really dial the Clifton Larson report in.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, we can all drive around our city and point to projects we regret the city passed on or wish we would have handled differently. Our city needs a leader with vision more than ever. How would you provide this visionary style leadership? Could you give some examples?
I think that I'm trying to decide whether to go to real estate or back to the State House. But in real estate, you're always looking, you're always trying to listen, and you're trying to learn, and you're trying to project what's going to happen. I think when the city has an opportunity to do something, say a parcel of land, I think we really need to run it up and down as to not what our needs are today, but what could be the needs in future years. I always would think it would be better to have the opportunity to say, okay, we did this 3 years ago, it's not working, we need to get rid of it, or whatever the case may be, than to turn around and say, we didn't do it, wow, we really should have. So I think it's when opportunities come about, I think we have to listen and learn. It's not always what we can't do. It's really truly about trying to get to yes. That's kind of what I've always used. It's a good idea. It's something that everybody wants to do, but we don't have the money. All right. But what are the opportunity costs if we don't do this? What is going to happen in the future? Should we have done this? And I think we have to ask ourselves just those different questions. And all of these questions, Counselor, they're going to be difficult. There's no question about it, because if that were the case, we would have did it all. There's only so much that the council or any type of government can do. But I think it's just a different way of looking at it. And I think that from my real estate perspective, and I'm just speaking from a land perspective, I think that is something would be a special, not a specialty, but something I think I would know where to go and how to accomplish that goal.
Thank you very much.
Councilor Rourke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to try to fool anybody. We have a relationship that goes back a long time, professionally and personally. But there are other councils up here that have a very similar relationship that we have with you as well. When the position became open, and you told not only me but the city that you were an applicant for the position, I couldn't think of a better person to lead our city going forward. I think that your relationship building, your professionalism, your work ethic, and your history of public service all lead you to be the ideal candidate to lead us forward over the next certain period of time. I think that if you weren't ready for the job, you would know that yourself and you wouldn't bother going through this. If I didn't think you were ready for the job, if anybody else up here didn't think you were ready for the job, I think you would hear that as well. One of the qualities that every counselor up here has, and yourself, is brutal honesty. I think you've seen that over the past 3 or 4 months since this council has taken shape. And those are things that have to be brought to the forefront every Tuesday night going forward. There's no more sugarcoating. There's no more political answers for things. The city is going through a change, and we need somebody that is not afraid to take things head on to make those changes. I don't think they're going to be easy at certain points of time, but I think that with your skill set, that you are the person for the job at this point in time. With that all being said, I did hear what Councilor Janess stated earlier, and I want to kind of go off of what he was saying about the new district council and the new way of the city is being led, and the way we do have elections. When you have a district format, you're going to have to have a plan to both satisfy district and neighborhood council requests and motions, while also being able to focus on larger city issues. Councilor Newton talked about affordable housing, how you attract small businesses at the same time, support the current businesses that we have here, that have paid a higher rate of taxes than residents do. How do you keep up with the high standards of everyday quality of life issues that every resident, every business owner, every citizen, resident of the city go through. And I think that that's going to be the challenge that you will face, is how do you concentrate on the big picture while at the same time being able to handle potholes or a street sign, traffic, and things like that. So I would be interested in knowing how you would attack being the CEO of the city for both smaller things and also keeping an eye on the larger prize.
Thank you very much, Counselor. I appreciate that. I think it's putting the right people in place. As you talked about with, when Councilor Janest asked that, it is ensuring that the openings that we have today, that we're putting people who are qualified, people that care and love the city just as much as everybody here does. There is no doubt in my mind every Tuesday when I do watch, you can see that people care in this council about what is happening. So putting people there, making sure that the work is getting done, holding people accountable. And yes, it is going to be a lot of hard work. There is no question about that. And I appreciate your comments because I do believe I'm up to the task. That's not new as far as the hard work goes. In the legislature, balancing one of the more difficult committees, as well as trying to operate a small business on the side, nights and weekends, which I will be giving up, as the counselor asked earlier. But my organizational skills and the ability to multitask and the ability to put people in charge that I do not have to babysit in a way of saying. That's what I've done in Boston. I was lucky enough to work with incredible professionals in Boston. When I tell you some of the smartest people I've ever met when it comes to research and drilling down, and some of my friends from 350 Mass would know because I brought them in and invited them in to talk to these people. This wasn't just somebody that we just decided to figure out that they were going to talk about nuclear fusion. These are real people. That skill set I want to bring here. I'm going to bring here to make sure what you're talking about, that the day-to-day operations, the things that our friends, our family members, our neighbors care about the most when it comes to making sure the city streets are free from potholes, that the city streets are clean, that the trash cans are picked up, that everything is in order, comes with hiring the right people. So I think that is, I welcome that challenge, and I'm excited about it. And in talking about each counselor having their own neighborhood from the district side, and I know the 3 citywide councils, this is what I see watching. Everyone's always helping each other. Because if it's good for your neighborhood, it's good for the city. And I think that's important to talk about. If it's good for one neighborhood, it's good for the entire city. It is time that we treat that the way I just said it. It's sometimes, and I hate to bring this up, but it was a discussion between Councilor Rourke and Councilor Robinson with some monies that I was lucky enough to get from the state. And they both had talked about, well, maybe these projects would go a little bit over on either end. And everybody just talked about, hey, it's going to be good for us. It's going to be good for the city. So I truly believe as an elected official, as currently an elected official, I understand that each and every one of you have a constituency that you need to talk to, a constituency that you're concerned with. Your constituents are pushing to you to try to get things done. I would like to be a conduit to try to help to do that. And I think I could do that with my experience. But it's a heck of a lot easier, and I don't see it at all, with councilors going back and forth with each other. I really feel as though that every district will get the support it needs. I think it will be fair, and I think that the citywide councilors will feel the same way, because they'll be weighing in on 8 different districts all the time. I hope that answered it, because I'm getting a little excited about it, because it is good. It is good for our city to make sure that we have the district councilors where we have representation, and we also have 3 councilors that are citywide. And I think that that's something that we will excel at. I think this is going to be a good form of government.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Golden, Representative Golden. I'd like to thank you for your dedication to the city, and you've been an incredible advocate for us. And so my question is around that. How would you leverage your external relationships and partnerships that you have, and how would that benefit the city?
The place, the State House is a very interesting place. You can go down there and talk to no one. You can shoot in, shoot out, make your votes, and call it a day. Going up I was fortunate. I treated the legislature like I try to tell all of freshman members. I represent Centerville, Pawtuckettville, Precincts in Chelmsford, and Beacon Hill. And when I broke it down that way, a lot of, I will say, younger or newer members, not necessarily younger, but newer members, they always forgot to remember Beacon Hill as a constituency. The most important, for me anyhow, were being the first three, but you have to bring the fourth into play. Because I did that, I think my external relationships flourished. I mean, I had a great opportunity, you know, and I don't want to brag, but it's people that I met, and I never would have met them if I wasn't in the legislature. I mean, the ambassador to Ireland is a dear friend of mine. She was tapped by the Biden administration as a state representative. She was our majority leader. Claire Cronin is just a wonderful, wonderful person. If there's any way, shape, or form that she could help us, she would. Matter of fact, she had committed to coming to Lowell. Does that help us? I don't know. It could. But that external piece is very, very important. Just last week, I was sitting down with the Consul General from Israel. I've had the opportunity to visit Cambodia. I've had the opportunity to visit the Azores. So that big external stuff, I would love to try to bring right here to the city of Lowell. At one point in time, we were in discussions with, I know this sounds, but these are real people. This is on a large scale of what we could hope to bring. I've had the opportunity to serve with mayors of major cities, Boston being one of them. Today, he happens to be the United States Secretary of Labor. Ideas, people that you meet, people that I've discussed with what's happening at Lowell, in the city of Lowell. Major developers from Boston that I've met. Not because I've worked with them in a real estate career, that is not my specialty, but just in the fact of having these discussions with these external relationships. Working with UMass Lowell, that has really expanded a lot of my external relationships. And there's just so many different people that I've had the opportunity to meet and become friendly with, all because I took that fourth step. Taking care of Centerville, taking care of Pawtuckettville, taking care of Chelmsford, and then never forgetting about the State House and climbing up the ladder, and it's a long ladder, but, and meeting people with always the thought of creating a friendship that could be beneficial by bringing people back here, or maybe, and in some instances, I've helped them in their cities and towns. So I think it's going to be very instrumental. Some could help, some may not, but you know something? I believe they all know that Lowell's on the map, and I think if I asked them to help, if there's something that they could do, they would do.
And just one more question, if you don't mind. I guess we're doing more than one at a time. My second question is around the neighborhood voting changes that happened. A lot of the intent of it was to increase civic engagement in the community and community engagement. I'm just would like your input on how you would work to do that.
Why don't people vote? Why don't people get involved? I've been asking that question with some of my dear friends through my elected years. Even on off-election years, I used to send mailers reminding people that it's time to vote. I always think that it's a little bit of trust, or they're not listening. They're not going to listen. Why am I going to waste my time? I think that can be changed. I mean, we've talked about neighborhoods having political clout, political power, political votes. I've experienced it myself in my own district throughout the precincts. How do we do that? I think it's continue the good work, continue talking about what we're doing. And what we don't have here in the city is what we don't have in the State House. there's not a lot of fighting back and forth. There's not a lot of angry banter. I think what people see is, and I hate to say this because I think our Congresswoman's doing a great job, but I think people see Congress and they think that's what happens in politics. The federal disruption of the federal arguments, I think, really affects all of us. How can we get there? I think we just need to continue to push forward. If there's an idea that we should be out there promoting, and I know that I myself have been to so many Get Out the Vote events, but I'm all ears, Counselor, to figure out how to get that done, because I've tried it and it's so difficult. And I ran at a time when I first originally ran, you knocked on every single door because you didn't have, the ability to rip through lists. We just didn't do it. It's 28 years ago. And some of the responses that I would get weren't nice, not necessarily at me, but in government as a whole. So I think that if people paid more attention to their local government here in the city as well as the state, I think they'd start to change their opinion. And I don't know how to make that happen. I wish I did.
Thank you.
Councillor Yam.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you so much, Representative Golden, for your many years of public service and to serve the city and the state and your district. You and I in the real estate business. So every year we put a business plan together, and including, how much sales we want to achieve, and how many new agents will be hired, and what are the expenses that we will set aside for that years. And oftentimes in the real estate we also use technology to achieve all these goals. So back in 2013, the City of Lowell developed a business plan, and we're known as the Sustainability Lowell 2025. Include a few really characteristics that is really important to me for the City of Lowell. Sustainability neighborhood, housing choice, mobility and access, environmental resilience, effective operation, infrastructures, and technologies. These are good stuff. There's a few of them. I have the first question for you. How do you use this characteristic to move the City of Lowell into a smart city? Smart city using certain characteristic technology to improve the lives of the residents and also to communicate, improve the communication between the resident, the local government, and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor. The good thing about technology, telecommunications, utility, and energy, I did learn an awful lot about what's happening in the broadband world. And as Councilor brought up earlier, we had a real awakening, if you would, during COVID. Most of our city, I believe it's 85%, I stand to be corrected on that, but I believe it's 85% have that internet service. But of that percentage, I'm unsure of it. It wasn't told to me how much was lacking. That's something we need to beef up. And that's when I was talking earlier about Mass Broadband, trying to work with them and trying to bring them in. And the potential of looking at other carriers to come into the city to create some type of competition. Currently, right now, we have one. Is it possible to bring in another? Mass Broadband isn't that organization. As stated earlier, it's more of a quasi that could come in and try to help the city to give them some advice and possibly some money. So technology absolutely is key. And the best part about technology is, I don't want to say every day, but it continues to go lower and lower and lower in cost. I had the opportunity to download, I was in Boston 311 it's called, and it's an app. I just happened to see it as I was out, so I downloaded it and gave it a try. And it's incredible what you can do on Boston 311. I think what you were talking about is if you see something, say something, write it down. Everyone's busy, right? Are we going to send it via text message, via email to info@cityoflowell.com? Or could we possibly click it, send it, and open up a tab? If you had the chance to open up the Boston 311 app, it's incredible. It says when it was received, when it was acted upon, and then there's an action item. And if it was closed, it definitely would be it was really something to see. There's a cost associated with that. What is it? I'm sure it's probably per click or per user or something to that effect. But that's a type of technology that I believe we as a city need to go into that direction. Whether it be something like trash, roadway issues, roadway problems, but then we could always bring it back again to how can we make it easier for residents throughout the city of Lowell to apply for a permit. Coming down, not having to come down. Is there availability for us to make it easier? Because I actually think with the technology side of things, if we made permits easier to get, there's really not much of an excuse not to pull one, right? Today, I forgot to pull it. I was thinking about pulling it. I couldn't get downtown. There wasn't a parking spot. So I think the technology, Councilor, that you're talking about is something that we truly should. This is something that will change how our city will operate, whether through permitting to potholes, if you would.
Thank you, Representative. I just have one more question for you. Let me also mention to you that the characteristic of a smart city is to optimize the city function and drive economic growth while improving the quality of life for its citizens using smart technologies and data analysis. So during my campaign, I work a lot with businesses, and you touch on a little bit about how frustrating individual who want to start a business because they just an average citizen, not because they are a big corporation well connected in the city. So they express that that frustration of they have to call many departments, or oftentimes the inspector may not show up or return phone call that they need to. So along the line with the smart city, using the technology, how do you create a one-stop shop permitting similar to Boston when Mayor Marty Walsh, he took office? That's the first thing that he committed to do, to make sure that business owner as well as the homeowner who want to apply permit to fix their roof, and somebody who want to start, a coffee shop down the street from us here, they all can just access one portal and they fill out application, and then this application will be acknowledged by email to the applicant, and then also will send to appropriate department. The appropriate department take initiative to reach out to that applicant, not the other way around, that the applicant have to chase the personnel at the different department to get them to come down to inspect, to issue permit. So how do you combine different departments so that they can work seamlessly together along with the technology that will be developed for the city? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor. I'm sure that this software is out there. I just don't know of the name of it right now, but I think that is something would be vitally important to do. Once again, if we had a new business, which I do intend to be knocking on doors and looking for those quote-unquote Rolodexes of some of our friends in the area, but I think that we need to have a concierge service where if there's a new business coming into town, into the city of Lowell anywhere, and I don't care if it's a small organization making 5 widgets or a large organization making 1 million widgets. They need to be treated the same. And that concierge needs to be walking them through the process. That person, not the organization as a whole, but that person needs to be responsible for that company, making sure that it's easy, making sure that they feel that way, making sure that they feel welcomed. And we talked about inclusion. Everybody wants to feel like they're included. We want to make sure that these new companies that we're going to go and try to get after, we want them to know that they're part of the city. So on the new side, I think it's easier. The current, we have to keep doing. We have to keep them going. Similar to what I talked about, the organization I worked with UMass Lowell earlier, the Mill City folks. We need to get them out to help. Could the city do that? Can they do that? Should we do that? Yes. Because we need to realize there are companies that haven't yet found Lowell, but we're going to make sure that they know we're available. We have to almost change the way we think. They may, there's other cities out there. We need them here. How do we make it easier? How do we make how do we solve the time crunch, as you know, and as other business owners here know, there's a time crunch. You're doing, you're going 100 miles an hour, and then you have to come down to do A, B, and C. We need to get better at that. If we get better at that, I think, that rumor starts. That continues to flow. So it's definitely more cost-effective. I cannot see how it wouldn't be more cost-effective and to streamline these types of services. So I would be all in trying to figure out a way to get this done, trying to, quite frankly, go to our north. A lot of people are going down 93. I'm on 93 an awful lot. How do we get them to say, you don't need to go to Cambridge? You don't need to go to Somerville. Come to Lowell. And for the folks south of the city, trying to get them to do that reverse commute. How do we do that? Things like making it easy. That's one-stop shopping, this permitting, this licensing. But we cannot forget the companies and the businesses that have been here. We need to make sure that they're included on this, where when they're going for their renewals, it should just be something that how they're expected how it's expected to operate.
Thank you, Representative. I just have one quick comment that regarding the talent. We are fortunate to have UMass Lowell with all the talent is in our backyard. Mm-hmm. So my thought is that the city and with the brain of the UMass student come together and hash it out. How do we make our city to be the smartest city? And how do we develop a one-stop shop using smart technology, creating an app, just like other businesses that creating app. You want to order food, what food do you want to eat tonight? You just open up the app, DoorDash, and you select it, it's there at your doorstep in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. So why can't the city operate it as a business? You and I, we in the business. If we don't adapt, we don't change it, we will be out of business. And oftentimes, these are the thing that we can be adapted, can change, and then also the source of revenue that the city would generating mm-hmm. from the businesses application that come to the city of Lowell, because they say Lowell is a lot easier, business friendly, to open your business. And I'm proud to be able to bring some of the businesses to the acre and to the city of Lowell. And that's the one thing that I heard the most is about permitting. So we want to change that with, and if and when you are hired, I would like to see that as also a priority too. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate that. Councilor Scott was talking about external relationships earlier, and I think that's vitally important. I mean, UMass Lowell, Chancellor Maloney right now, and I know they're in a search, but those relationships with UMass Lowell, that wasn't created, for me last year. I really firmly believe that if we can engage the university, Middlesex Community College, the talent pool here to make these decisions to help, and that external relationships that I think I really have very, very strong, that's only going to help us. We need to utilize everything that we have. Our city workers, we consistently talk about giving them the tools to make sure that they can do what needs to be done. Well, from an economic development side, we also need those tools. You know, we need to, and some of the tools, one of the biggest tools is right up the street from us. And they do I think they're even up to the billions of research and development. And I bet you that if we asked, they'd be more than willing to try to help us, guide us. Because if the city of Lowell is doing well, the university's doing well, there is a lot of pride in this city. We just need to keep talking about it. So,
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. We're moving along quite well with the timing. Any final comments or questions? One more, Councillor Gishia.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you this question, Mr. Golden. We have two other legislative bodies in the city. One is the Lowell School Committee, and the other one would be Greater Lowell Technical High School. And as we go through this and we start thinking, the legislative bodies, the city has goals, obligations, priorities that they see, and the school department has their goals, priorities that they see, and Greater Lowell Tech has the same thing. How would you meet with those two governing bodies or functions between superintendents in maybe weekly, monthly? I'm not sure how you would meet on it, but to plan together to bring everybody to the table and try to find the common ground, the common goals that work best for everybody. And obviously, they're going to have their goals. The city's going to have their goals. How would you bring those legislative bodies and those functions to the table with the city's goals and objectives and mesh them together to become a common goal for all of the residents and the students in the city?
Thank you very much, Councilor. I think when I was talking earlier in my opening, I was trying to say that all of the students, whether Lowell Public Schools, Greater Lowell Tech, or any of the other schools, they're all our children, and we have to educate them. We have to make sure that that happens. So I think as far as that would go, I would really like to just, use my communication skills. I think that today, or in the past, there always seems to be this silo. We're here, you're there. But at the end of the day, we're trying to educate our children. I don't care, if it's charter schools, if it's the Greater Lowell Tech or the high school, anything like that. Not chances are, there's a very, very high percentage, other than kids coming in from, other cities and towns. These are all the children that live here in the city. So it's really incumbent upon us at the top of the organization to really get along and to really work together. Now, there are going to be times when we can't work together just because we have competing interests, or I don't know how you could have a competing interest, but I'm sure the things that could happen like that. But I think that, meeting more, talking more, that goes an awful long way. Going for a cup of coffee. I mean, I was charged many times with some of, I probably shouldn't say this because some of my colleagues are probably watching this, some of the, let's just say, difficult colleagues to try to work with and try to get them not to see a policy decision, but just to work a lot better with each other. Sometimes I was in charge of putting, let's say, fires out. And I was called often for that, as you could imagine, in a body of 160 people. So I think that using interpersonal skills and, truthfully, talking, going for coffee. There's not always an ask. There doesn't always have to be an ask. Maybe it's just creating those relationships. Maybe, I would hope that would help.
Thank you.
Councillor Janess.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So you mentioned Julian Steele a couple times, and that made my gears turn a little bit back to what we talked about, ideas and challenges. Obviously, that project was not without its controversy and its challenges. The DNA of this city is, as you know, an immigrant city, a gateway city. And I think you're well poised to answer this with your real estate experience and your legislative experience. But what I'm wondering about is where we're at now is a bit of an inflection point for housing. All our mills have basically been redeveloped at this point. And with the housing market being what it is, what folks in the industry are telling me is they're seeing a lot of influx of people coming to Lowell because they can't afford Boston, Cambridge, Somerville, Waltham, so they're coming up. And of course, what that has, the knock-on effects of that are pushing people in the city, in Lowell, who grew up here, out to Fitchburg, Leominster, southern New Hampshire, because that's the next tier that they can afford. So what can we do as we're looking to continue our economic development and growth in this city and balance that with the ability to maintain that city, our city's DNA of being an immigrant gateway city with opportunities for people coming to this country new and people who grew up here. I think it's an important thing that we have to figure out how we're going to balance going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Merrimack Valley Housing Partnership, and I'm sure all of you know them, they do a fabulous job, first-time homebuyer programs, and just simply trying to help people to get housing. The housing stock right now, it's just not where it needs to be. I mean, the governor has talked about it. Everyone seems to be talking about it. The affordable, on the rental side, there's no other better term than out of control. It's absolutely, positively out of control from a rental side. How do you make that balance? How do you create that balance? I think that the city needs to take it head on. You know, how can we make sure that Acre Crossing, and I'm just using Acre Crossing as just an example, but things like Acre Crossing, how do we make that happen? In the world of real estate, as Councilor will tell you, there's always the latest rumor, right? And there's rumors that downtown could be a building for sale or a building on the move and things like that. But it'd be interesting to see, is it going to be market rate? Once you start going after things like historical tax credits, you do have to have some type of affordability factor in there. So I would, if I was fortunate enough to be appointed, that's in a wheelhouse that I truly understand and have the ability to push back on. I mean, I had been in the legislature for some time when we were working on Jackson Street. I could tell you, like many of you would know, Jackson Street at one time, it didn't look like it looks today. That's, you know, it was troubled. But what happened was, between the city took a strong role, as well as the state during, I believe it was a JAM plan. And we turned that over, and we assisted and we helped, and we made it affordable. Not all of it, but some of it. I think that's the route we need to go, but we do have a problem. We're running out of space. We're running out of room. We need to take an inventory of what is going on. Some, I might be a little harsher than others. Some building owners are not doing their part, and they're causing difficulty for the people that are doing their part. I would fully expect that those people that are making things difficult, they should be held to the standard. Are we holding them to the standard? Just simple standards of making sure that the building looks right. And if maybe we should be talking to them. How can we help them either get rid of the building, sell the building, do something with the building? But there are some of our buildings that are just lying dormant that I don't think is right. Maybe that's an opportunity for us once we kind of look through to see what do we have, what's in our stock. But I'll tell you, and I'm sure Councilor Yem could tell, we don't have an awful lot of it. It's going to be a challenge, but it's a challenge that I would be excited to be a part of. I've been in discussions with some of the housing organizations in the city, talking about what should we do, what can we do, how do we make Lowell, how do we continue to make Lowell an affordable city? Because exactly what you're talking about is happening. There's a thing in real estate, New York to Boston. Boston is now coming up this way to Lowell. There are people that are buying some of these houses that, in all my time, I would say, wow. But as they say to me, Lowell's beautiful. Lowell is beautiful. And you know, because they're coming from inner city living, this may be funny to us, but some of us, wow, I get a backyard, I get an off-street parking, I get one spot in front of my house. You know, I talk to my friends throughout the Commonwealth, other reps, and they talk about that stuff. Some of my dear friends, they park where they can, and they may have to walk 5 minutes to their house. So when you're coming up to the city, having off-street parking or a backyard, that's kind of a big deal. And they're willing to pay that premium. And that's kind of, we welcome them, right? We welcome everybody coming into the city, but it's making it more and more difficult for the residents who have been here because rents and costs of living are skyrocketing, not just here, but around the country.
Thank you.
No other comments or questions? Or Councilor Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Rob Golden, again. So, looking out there, you see Smith Baker. The building just about to fall down. You know, look from the outside, it doesn't seem like, it seems okay. Do you have a plan for the Smith Baker, and how would you implement that?
The Smith Baker, a number of years ago, I don't want to say I was on a task force, but the Smith Baker's been around for quite some time. I will be ready to be stand corrected. I think the Smith Baker was probably $1 million in disrepair just to kind of get it to a safe spot. Councilor, the best advice I would think is that this body, would come together with an idea. And this would be a multi-year piece. Do an assessment, which I'm sure DPD has, or it's probably on the shelf from when we were talking about this. Go to our state delegation, ask them for X amount of dollars per year, and go with the plan, whether it be the Smith Baker plan or the Upper Merrimack Street plan. What I always appreciated in my years as a legislator is when the council came to us and said, we have an idea. We want you to support this idea. And we came in and we supported, and I'm using JAM. Now this is going back quite a few years ago. And then JAM, the Jackson Appleton Middlesex plan, it was accomplished. And then we did acre revitalization, and that was accomplished. So maybe it's an opportunity today to look at Smith Baker going up towards the university to create a plan that potentially the legislature could help with. The legislature, as I know, because I'm doing it, but I know my colleagues are always, ears wide open to be part of a project that the city could move. Now, is it millions of dollars? Probably not. Probably not right out of the gate. But the Smith Baker, I can remember when my mother worked there, when the senior center was there so many years ago. It's a beautiful building, and it's something that we should restore and do something with. So maybe that's the idea. Maybe that's the plan. Maybe it's the Upper Merrimack Street plan, and that's not to say we don't need another plan in another area. But I think that asking our my legislative colleagues to do that, I think it might be a good idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Murcia?
Mr. Mayor, do you have any questions at all?
I do, but I would like the councilors to go first. If you have any more comments or questions.
I have comments.
Okay.
But I have one question.
Sure.
Mr. Golden, you know where the lot overpass is, don't you?
Yes. Yes, I do, Councilor.
That's beautiful. I want to make a comment, but I'd rather, if everybody has their questions already asked, I want to make a motion. So I don't want to make that motion until you have a chance to speak.
Sure. Is the motion related to tonight's interview?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Councilor Yan, do you have one more question or comment? Okay, Councilor Yan.
In response to Councilor Jeunesse, yes, we have many people who are moving to Lowell from the outskirts of Boston, including Revere, Everett, Malden, simply because a two-family home is affordable here in the city of Lowell, and they can take the commuter rail to go back to Boston where they work. The concern Councilor Jeunesse raised is a legitimate one, and then I think it has to do with that the city may need to look at our zoning so that make it more easier for developer to develop multifamily in the area in the city, so that the city would, the developer would not have to jump through hoops in order to accomplish, to create more affordable housing in the city. So that's one thing that I would like to see, that some changes in the zoning in the city of Lowell. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councillor, for that comment. If no other comments or questions, I do have a quick comment and a quick question, and if there's no objection from any of the councillors, I'm going to make my comment as a question from up here. Any objection? First of all, I echo the sentiments of all the councillors here. I want to thank Rep. Golden for your interest in applying to become potentially the next city manager. And as everyone here knows and the city knows that Rep. Golden, you have established relationship throughout the entire city, throughout the different neighborhoods and the different communities. And your relationship at the State House is absolutely valuable to our city if you were to be voted to be the next city manager. And I just thank you for your leadership at the State House, leadership in our communities. And because of that, I believe that you could lead the real change in the next coming years. As the first Cambodian American mayor in the city, and also along with my co-Cambodian American councilors, I do want to touch on the diversity hiring, which a few councilors have mentioned and asked already. As you know, that we are in a time of change. We are in a time trying to increase staffing throughout the different city departments. And one of my main goals is to, as you know, when I was first elected, I was the chairman of public safety, and I got to work with the police department and the fire department closely to understand what's going on. Also meet with the residents in our community. And it's also an interest of the city councilors here to focus on public safety, because when you talk about quality of life, it really starts with people feeling safe, people feeling that they are comfortable dealing with the different departments, with the police officers, with the firefighters, and so forth. Given that information, that we have about 30% Southeast Asian residents and about 20% Latinos, and a large percentage of African American in our city. But on the public safety side, the staff, the police officers, and the firefighters don't really reflect that. And specifically, just as an example, the Southeast Asian police officers, like I said, we have about 30%. And this is not hard statistic, it's just information that I get informally. I believe we might have 5% of the police force are Southeast Asian. And on top of that, as far as I know, the first Cambodian American police officer was hired about 40 years ago. And since then, there have been an increased number of Cambodian American police officers, but I have not noticed any Cambodian police officer who hold a officer's ranking higher than a patrol. My question is two parts, really. One is, what is your plan to increase diversity in hiring more minority police officers? And second, having a plan to recruit and hire minority police officers, but if there's no opportunity for advancement, I think that's problematic in terms of having the minority residents want to apply even to become police officers. So also the second question is, what is your plan to have advancements for the minority police officers? I mentioned the police department, but I also want to include the fire department as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Please excuse my back I apologize.
I think you might have to get used to it.
That's a great question. I believe that one of our major problems, one of the first problems out of the gate, would be that the city of Lowell is under civil service. But that doesn't mean we can't think of a way to help. I think first and foremost, with the council's approval, I would try to find out why people are not taking the exam. What's the reasoning? And then I would probably look around, research to see if there was another community, what were they doing and what are they doing and is it working? And if that's not happening, I still think that we could possibly provide that opportunity. We have, at least I want to speak from the police department. I know the fire department has their own training, and I'm just not, I know they train and drill on probably a daily basis on the vehicles and whatnot, but I'm very familiar, just because of the offices that I know, that we do have things like in-house, we have our own academy. We also have in-service training, and our officers are very well trained. I don't think it would be a terrible stretch to say that we could create some type of resource or a program to increase the diversity amongst our offices. I know that there was a piece of legislation that I believe was passed by this body, and that was for the cadet program. And that cadet program was geared, and please, whoever filed it, that cadet program is geared towards people who took the exam and maybe didn't score as high. And it was going to be a 2-year, I'm going to call it a probationary period, to see if that particular person would be fit for a good officer. Boston Police, I know, has a program like this. This would be something that I think there's no reason why we couldn't do it. And if the maker of the motion on the cadet program, if I'm wrong, please correct me, but I believe that's what we're trying to do. So that could increase the diversity of the department. And the next piece, and that was Chief Richardson, I believe, that filed that. In the plan advancement, I think one of the big opportunities you could have is to provide that opportunity, but maybe possibly provide some mentoring. Mentoring, I think, is something that I'm quite confident happens within the police department on a very, I hate to say, probably casual basis, right? I know that each officer has a training officer, and to make sure that all the T's and the I's are crossed, and that officer is ready to go out on the road. I do know that that's happened, and many of us have our friends and family members who are police officers. So I know that that indeed happens, but I kind of wonder, Mr. Mayor, if we have a mentoring program, something that is for folks to say, hey, I'm interested possibly someday in becoming a sergeant or a detective to a sergeant or whatever that case may be. I'm not so sure, Mr. Mayor, that that's happening anyplace else, but I think it's a great idea. I think it's something that we should push. I congratulate, obviously, Chief Richardson on his retirement, first and foremost, but that cadet program could be a jumping off point where we could get that done. We do need to reflect our community, and I do believe we've been doing our best, but we need other ideas like this, Mr. Mayor, to actually to continue to move forward.
Thank you. As we are concluding the interview process and before we have discussions or comments or motions and so forth, on behalf of the council body, I would like to thank you for making yourself available to come for the interview tonight. I also want to thank Mary Callery for working very hard during this process, putting out the post out there, going through all the resume, talking to people, and just being very patient with the process as well. We're done with all the questions. I would request that the candidate And Ms. Callery, please leave the chamber. I apologize if it didn't sound too well, but once you leave, we can continue the discussion and any more comments relevant to this matter. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to thank you and the council very much for this opportunity today. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the council want to take a couple minutes break, or everybody's okay? You want to take 2-3 minutes break, or no? Okay. Anybody? No? Okay. Any discussions, comment, question? Councilor Musia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We all heard the interview. Personally, I want to say that I was very impressed with what I heard. I didn't think of a lot of the questions that my colleagues asked, and it was very right on the target. I think it was tremendous. I think he answered to the best of his ability, and I was very, very impressed by it. And what I gathered from this interview, and having known this gentleman as a state rep, he wasn't my state rep because I'm not in that district, but he was a person that I followed in politics. We could feel his compassion. We could feel his love for the city. There's no doubt about it. And I think that any one of those other 13 candidates that sat here would never hold a candle to his compassion and love for this city. He has a long history of service. I believe he said 28 years. Very familiar with our city. He knows where the Lord Overpass is. He brought into our city hundreds and thousands of dollars, probably millions. The only regret that I would have is he wouldn't be bringing that in, I guess, as a state rep, but maybe he could bring it in with his connections from Boston through the Senate and the state and the House. He would know his connections. He has communication skills. Teamwork is what I heard. I like that. Informative transparency, that's what I want. Everything that he talked about and answered is what I want in a candidate, is what I want in a person that's going to lead this city. He knows about Councilor Robinson's efforts to provide solar panels at the Robinson School property. Who else would know that? We know it because we heard it. I was impressed that he said that. I didn't know a state rep would actually watch the city council meeting. I'm surprised about it. He is a multitasker. I believe everything he said because I know he means it. I don't know about my colleagues. They may have some comments as well, and I welcome that. But I would be remiss in my duties as a city councilor, and having heard everything that he said, I would like to make a motion to offer the position of city manager to Thomas Golden. That's my motion, but I also want to have my colleagues weigh in on their opinion as well. Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Musia, seconded by Councilor Robinson, and still open for discussion. Councilor Robinson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd have to say, my opinion, excellent interview, touched on a variety of issues that not just the council, our constituents, business owners, stakeholders deeply care about. I like the fact that some of the tougher questions were answered very honestly, in my opinion, and I appreciate the forward thinking and the willingness to bring people to the table, to have conversations, to try to obtain and work towards a common goal. And I think that's been echoed by my colleagues many times since January, and I commend that. And I support Councilor Mercier's motion. Thank you.
Councilor Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also agree that that was an excellent interview. I think Representative Golden would bring an energy to this position. I think he has an ability to work with everyone, you know, those excellent communication skills that he cited. And I think that we need long-term leadership in the city, and I think Representative Golden could bring that with his passion for this city. Thank you.
Any other comments? Councilor Yam?
I know Representative Tom Golden back in 1999 when we made the trip to Cambodia. He cared enough to go on the trip so he can learn about the resident of, from Cambodia who live in the city of Lowell. And we learned a lot, and he learned a lot, and we talked a lot about, you know, the community service, constituent services. So I'm impressed, and then I will be one to support his position as the next city councilor, next city manager of the city of Lowell. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Drinkwater?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I really just want to highlight one of Mr. Golden's qualities that really stands out to me, and he did mention this himself, is that his ability to build and foster relationships at every level of government. I've had the opportunity to work with Representative Golden, discussing city issues, discussing issues that relate to my day job representing workers, and I really do find him to be somebody who listens, who wants to learn about every issue, and who does build relationships at every level, and I think that's just an incredibly important attribute for the next city manager. And he does just exude a passion for this city that really does come through in every conversation, and that's something that just not everybody has, but it'll be so important as we do try to move forward as a city. So I am in support of this motion. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No other comments? Mr. Clerk, roll call, please.
Councilor Getchia.
Hold on, Mr.
Excuse
Clerk.
me.
Councilor Mercier?
I would just have to disclose that I filed a disclaimer on the advice of the solicitor and the State Ethics Commission, Section 23B3, that I serve on the Bridge Club of Greater Lowell with Tom Golden, and I know how people can say that I shouldn't vote, so I wanted to know if I could, and I was told that upon filing that disclaimer and placing it with the city clerk, that there is no conflict of interest, so I intend to be voting this evening. Thank you.
Councilor Rook?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. For the record, did the same thing with the State Ethics Commission. I passed in the paperwork to the clerk before the meeting.
Any other comments or disclosure? Mr. Clerk, please start the roll call again.
Councilor Getchia.
Yes.
Councilor Janess.
Yes.
Councilor Leahy.
Yes.
Councilor Mercier.
Yes.
Councilor Noon.
Yes.
Councilor Robinson.
Yes.
Councilor Rourke.
Yes.
Councilor Scott.
Yes.
Councilor Yem.
Yes.
Mayor Chow.
Yes.
Councilor Drinkwater.
Yes.
Adopted 11 yeas.
Any announcements? Councilor Rook?
Mr. Mayor, do you need a motion to enter in contract negotiations with the solicitor and the HR director? I'll make that.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Rook, seconded by Councilor Nguyen. All in favor say aye, opposed say no. The ayes have it.
Motion to
is
adjourn.
carried. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Rook. Motion passed. Seconded by Councilor Robinson. Motion passed.
Good job. I can't get up that back. It's gonna go burning. I threw it out this morning. I don't know. You know what? I was. You'll realize that soon. There was too much laughter this past Saturday. I knew it was going to happen this morning. All right. Good job. Nah, not bad at all.